The latest injury news is out for the Bombers. There's always a lot to talk about on this front, so we're going to talk about it right now in this video.
Fighting Bombers bold. Bombers come out fighting, and they'll fight till the end.
So we can't talk about injuries without first talking about the departure of Shaun Murphy. I won't dwell on it too much because a lot of other YouTubers have already sort of discussed this, and it's kind of old news, a few days old now. We're all pretty much aware of it. But my personal take on it is that it's probably more for the optics than anything else. I don't think you could confidently say that, you know, one person is responsible and it's their fault and, you know, blah, blah, blah. But certainly I think it's good to at least be seen to making change. And certainly you can't just let things drag on without making change, regardless of whose fault it is. Generally speaking, I think it's good to refresh and renew roles anyway. I mean, if you have a look at the changes Essendon has made over the last 3 years, we've had a new president, a new coach, a new CEO, a new VFL coach, obviously for different reasons there, a new general manager, a new recruitment manager, now a new high performance manager. So we have sort of refreshed and renewed a lot of the positions, and now we're in a position where we really have to stabilise them and let them do their job for a few years and see what the results are, which is a very, very important thing. We've obviously made a lot of changes in other areas, and this sort of high performance aspect now is the latest one and probably the last one, other than changes to the playing list. So that would be my take on it. I'd like to know what you guys think. If you like this video, please hit the like and subscribe buttons because it helps the YouTube algorithm. It doesn't cost any money and it only takes a second to do so. About 60% of you guys watching this are not subscribed. So if you appreciate the content that I provide, please hit the subscribe button right now because I'd really appreciate it. One thing that did, prick my ears up a little bit, I heard Brad Scott was talking in a press conference and he was saying that the club is going to look far and wide, potentially at other sports, as well as to where they can get someone from. Now, I don't know anything about the human body in terms of, it's not my job or anything, I'm not into physiology or anything like that, so I'm not sure. But it did seem like an odd thing to say. I would have thought that you would stick close to Australian rules football, given that the athletic requirements are pretty specific for that sport. If getting someone from rugby league requires, a different, fitness base, and it's more power based and less endurance, and basketball's different and anything like that. I would have thought that you would stick close to Australian rules football because it's a very specific type of fitness requirement that you need. That's what I would think from afar. But I guess we just have to put our faith in the club and, just hope that they, select the right person. Obviously, they had a shot at Burgess from Adelaide. He said he will stay at Adelaide. They have pretty much no injuries this year. He would have been a good one to get. So, look, it's just a case where you've got to put faith in the club and hope they choose the right person. So normally I go through each of the individual players. I'm not going to go through sort of every single player one by one. I'll just list the players, first of all, that are out for the season. We have Nick Bryan out for the season, Nick Cox, Sam Draper, Tom Edwards, Lewis Hayes, Harrison Jones is now officially listed as out for the season. That is a change. It was to be confirmed for a number of weeks, but he's now listed officially as out for the season. Nick Martin, Darcy Parish is out for the season, Zach Reed and Will Setterfield. So that is 10 players out for the season. For various reasons, we know ACLs, Achilles, foot in the terms of Will Setterfield, ankle in the terms of Harrison Jones, etc., etc. But we do have 5 players who are still available to come back this year, and they're the ones we're going to be focusing on more in this video. So Jye Caldwell to start. Jye Caldwell has an ankle injury. He's still listed at 5 to 6 weeks. They may as well have listed him as out for the season, but officially he's not out for the season yet. I think a requirement for Caldwell would be to make sure he's 100% right for the pre-season. We obviously have a number of players who will not be able to, go through what you would call normal pre-seasons as they're still recovering from injuries this year. You don't want Caldwell to be one of those. Then again, if he's right to go for that last game or whatever, well, do you play him? What's really the point? I mean, 5 to 6 weeks listed, you may as well have him as out for the season. But officially, he still is able to come back this year. Ben Hobbs, who had a groin injury last week, he is a test this week. So where that puts him, I'm not sure. We would say probably 50-50. Look, this is a very important few weeks for Hobbs. He is one of several players who is coming out of contract at the end of the year. And he has been a bit iffy this year. I've always been a bit critical of his kicking. He really does need to prove himself over the next few weeks. I think he's probably more likely to stay on the list than not. But certainly, coming up out of contract, it's not a position you really want to be in if you're getting injured towards the end of the year, especially with list spots so tight. So it's a really important few weeks for Ben, and we hope that he can get back into the team and show what he's capable of. Kyle Langford is 3 to 4 weeks away, so that puts him at a return for the last couple of games of the season. He's got a quad injury. Look, he's basically been out for the whole year, hasn't he? He's done 2 quad injuries, 2 6 to 8 week injuries almost consecutively. And this puts his position at the club in terms of trade bait and things like that up in the air. There's been some rumblings that he's, not happy and he could be seeking a trade. That's all kind of speculation, but, kind of where there's smoke, there's fire sort of thing. For what it's worth, he comes out of contract in 2027. So he's still contracted to the club for another 2 years after this one. I like Langford. I've always rated him as a player, but it would be interesting to see what we could, potentially get for him and other players. You don't know unless you put them on the market. I think he's probably more likely to stay than not, especially given the relatively long contract that he's on. But he's due back in 3 to 4 weeks from his quad, so he might play in those last 3 games of the season. Ben McKay is another update. So Ben McKay has been listed, along with Harrison Jones, as a TBC, to be confirmed. Well, for the first time, he is listed at 5 to 6 weeks away, so he hasn't officially been ruled out. Brad Scott did say at the press conference that he officially said that he has not been ruled out for the year, but he said it would be unlikely that he would play. So he is actually making progress. Brad Scott mentioned at the press conference today that it was slow progress, but that is good news. There were some rumblings regarding McKay that he could be out for a longer period of time with this plantar plate issue in his foot, which can be a serious issue. It can range from weeks to months, depending on the seriousness of it. But 5 to 6 weeks. Look, all I want is for these players to be right to go for the pre-season. So I would say at 5 to 6 weeks, it puts him in a unlikely position that he'll play this year, especially given that if you were back for the last game, we've got that last game against the Gold Coast on what we think is a Wednesday night, and there's really, coming off what's probably a 5-day break. And what's the point getting someone on a plane and rushing them up there to play that last game, unless we just have no players available? But I just like to see Ben get back and just have a better year next year. And the best way to have a better year is to go into an uninterrupted pre-season. The last player is Elijah Tsatas, who is listed as 4 weeks, which is a pretty long time given that he missed last week, which puts him really at a 5-week absence with that hamstring injury. And this is a bad blow, because this was a great opportunity with him, with some of the absences in the midfield, to really prove himself in that last month or 6 weeks of the season. And he pretty much would have been almost guaranteed to play, given all the absences in there. And he, did okay, I guess, against Richmond, kicked a goal, still had that 60% game time, which is kind of low for him. But, now he's going to miss 4 weeks. So he'll be back for the last couple of games. And once again, this is similar to the Hobbs situation. He really, really needed to prove himself, and now he can't get on the field. And where that puts him at the end of the year, he's obviously a player that generates much discussion in, on this page. I talk about him quite a bit because he's, not because I necessarily want to, but because it is a discussion point. But a hamstring injury, 4 weeks, really 5 weeks if you include last week being out, is kind of a bit of a disastrous injury to have at this time of the year, at his stage of, his career. So we hope he can get back, and he would be absolutely anxious to play, I reckon, in those last 2 games of the year. If he can play in those last 2 games of the year against Carlton and the Gold Coast, both those games in the last round, they've been played in the same round, that could go a long way to determining what his status will be next year. Will he ask for a trade? Will the club move him on? I'm told that the club would rather keep him at this stage, but we will find out. So that is the injury news. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Have a great day, everybody. And as always, go Bombers.
Bombers fly, watch the Bombers fly.